Raleigh starting to become a buyer-friendly market again? Stay tuned to find out. So is buyer friendliness coming back to Raleigh? The answer to that seems to be maybe a yes right now. And the reason we are saying that is because typically, having that buyer friendliness comes along with how much inventory is available in the market and if it's meeting the current demand, or maybe it's a little higher than the current demand, so that you feel like you have more time and more options. During the pandemic and the years following it, we saw things just escalate out of control with buyer demand. Everything was snatched up so quickly, and we are finally getting to a point where those inventory levels seem to be approaching, or maybe in some of our towns are already back at the place they were in 2019.
Yeah, so the reason you compare it to 2019 is because 2019 was the last time we saw inventory levels that were sufficient in a way to meet the demand. So places like Raleigh, Durham, and Fuquay are really great examples of this. In Raleigh, as of March of 2025, we're about 200 homes off from where we were in March of 2019, which is astounding. So Raleigh is very close to meeting the inventory levels that they were in pre-pandemic levels. Durham is essentially there. I think they're like 2 homes off if you're comparing March of 2025 to March of 2019. So they are essentially at pre-pandemic levels. And Fuquay, Varina is a great example of a town that is already above pre-pandemic levels of inventory. So in a town like Fuquay, as of now, you have more inventory on the market than you did in 2019, which is really astounding.
Yeah, it really is, but in a way it's also not surprising because in the last 5 years, Fuquay itself has become a new construction haven. So we have way more housing there than we did in 2019 as well. So that's a little bit relative compared to like Raleigh and Durham, where still a lot of new construction happening in this area, but percentage-wise, not as much as we've seen in the Fuquay Marina area. But in general, it is really interesting to see things getting back to those numbers. One important caveat is Raleigh was still competitive before the pandemic as well. Like, we've been doing real estate for a while, and we still commonly saw multiple offer scenarios, but it just wasn't as escalated as it was during the pandemic. So it's just something to note.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so those are 3 examples of markets that are either at, above, or near pre-pandemic levels in our area. But there are still markets that are far below where they were in 2019. 2 good examples of that. One is Cary and one is Chapel Hill. So Cary is 40% below where they were in 2019, March of 2019. And Chapel Hill is 55% below where they were in March of 2019. So those markets still have a lot of room to grow, but we are seeing substantial growth. I mean, Cary, as an example, grew year over year 75% in inventory. So from March of 2024 to March of 2025, there was a 75% jump comparing those 2 months together. And so those areas are seeing substantial growth, but they're still lagging behind other markets. And it makes sense because if you think about the most competitive markets in our area, Cary is one of those.
Yeah.
Chapel Hill is one of those. And so that low inventory level creates more of that competition in those markets that we don't always see in some of the other markets that we were talking about. But I think, this is just my prediction, I think by 2026, probably at the latest, sometime mid-2026, we'll start to see a place like Cary or a place like Chapel Hill be very close or above pre-pandemic levels of inventory. Yeah. I think we're about a year away.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, and maybe some theories of why are those markets still slow is that they're just very appealing places to relocate to. So when people are searching online for places to live around the Raleigh area, and they're maybe looking for the best school systems or places with like the best parks and stuff like that, they might be very drawn, at least initially, to Cary and Chapel Hill. So that's kind of some of my prediction of why those 2 areas are still competitive.
Yeah, and Cindy made this point with Fuquay, but a Cary and a Chapel Hill are 2 areas where you don't see a substantial amount of new construction. And so there's not that new construction leap to kind of build up your inventory levels. Right. It's all reliant, not all reliant, but it's mostly going to be reliant on the resale market rebounding as far as like new listings hitting the market. So, and it's just going to take a longer time for that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just us saying that the market is starting to slow down and become more buyer friendly. Organizations like Zillow actually revised revised for, I think, the fourth time this year. They've
a lot of
revised it. They've revised this thing
For
downward
one
many,
quarter
many,
of the
yeah,
year.
many times. But their latest price forecast for the U.S. actually shows a drop in home prices, and in our area, it's a 1.4% drop in the Raleigh metro, and about a 1% drop in the Durham metro. And to kind of put it in context, like when you're looking at the nation as a whole, I think it was Atlantic City, New Jersey, where they were showing the highest price appreciation, and that was only 2.4% of what they were year over year from March of 2025 to March of 2026, what they're forecasting. So that's not a lot of price growth for the fastest in the nation. And so organizations like Zillow are starting to see the market slow down and become more buyer friendly.
Yeah, and it's not just Zillow. There's also been some really large national home builders like D.R. Horton and KB Homes that have also acknowledged that it has been a slower start than they had anticipated to the year.
Yeah. So I think in general, the data in our area is starting to point towards a more buyer-friendly market, and the data nationally and just the expectation from CEOs and large organizations involved in the real estate world that we are entering a much more buyer-friendly market. All right, so what does this mean for you? So if you are a buyer, I think as the year goes on, as we head into late summer, early fall, we're gonna see a much more buyer-friendly market than we're in currently. Right now, there is a little bit of competition in the market, or a lot of competition in the market, depending on where you are and what the house looks like and the condition of the home. But I think similar to what we experienced last year, you are going to have a lot of leverage as a buyer in our market come late summer, early fall.
Yeah, and by a lot of leverage in the market, we do work with a lot of people that I think they see like, oh, it's not as bad as it was during the pandemic, so that means I'm gonna like snag a deal. That's probably not going to happen.
You may get a deal, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the house,
yeah,
you know.
situation,
But if a home pops up that you like that's listed for $550,000, you're not going to get it for $500,000 and get them to give you a $10,000 seller credit and fix everything on the inspection report. Like, it's not like post-2008 market, you know? It just means instead of competing with 12 people for the same home, you might be the only one or two people competing for the home. So, you know, it's
and you might have time to think about it.
And you might have a little more time to think about it. You don't have to like see the home and put the offer in when you're driving home that day, you know, like you can maybe take a little more time to think about your decision. And there are different ways to like leverage more credits your way, but like it doesn't mean that like you're gonna snag something for way less than it's worth or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think for sellers, and this is really already true, but it's gonna become even increasingly more true, your house has to be market ready. And so the homes that we see right now that are sitting on the market are homes that have needs for cosmetic work or whatever it is. They're just not ready for the market. And so if you put a house up for sale and cosmetically it looks good, it's priced right, it's in a nice area, it's going to sell quickly today and it's going to sell quickly later this year. But the homes that need a decent amount of work that are not market ready are really going to struggle.
Yeah, totally agree. And you know, those ones that aren't market ready, if you don't want to be able to make it market ready, you've really got to price it to a point that people do feel like, wow, I'm getting a deal. Like I don't mind having to dump my cash into doing a kitchen renovation, you know? So you've got to keep some of those things in mind and be strategic about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But we are Zach and Cindy Honeycutt, a couple of real estate agents in the area. So if you are looking to buy or sell, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can find our contact info below, and you can also reach us on Instagram.
Yep, we'd love to have you follow along with us on Instagram. You can find us at the Honeycutt Realtors if you are interested in area developments, restaurant reviews, playgrounds, things to do with families. You can check out our other account, the RDU Buzz, for all of that kind of content, and we look forward to messaging with you there.
Yep, and we'll see y'all next time.